welcome to a new episode of The Brand Called You. I am Arini and I am with Ashutosh Garg, and today we are talking about some of the non-financial issues in retirement. Most of us plan our money well in advance before retirement, but we forget that we also have to plan our time, which we have in abundance after we retire. So what are some of the non-financial issues that people face after they retire?
So, Arun, you said it very well. When a person retires, he or she will plan the money, where they will live,
Right.
what will they do with children. But what they don't realize is that they have an abundance
Right.
of time. And that nobody thinks about, nobody plans. And a whole lot of things that go along with it.
Right.
So, if one is to look at what happens when you start to look at retirement, the first thing that happens to you is a loss of identity. You're a senior manager, you're a general manager, you're a chairman. Most of our identity comes from the visiting card that we carry. But we suddenly realize that is gone. And that leads to a huge loss of self-worth. Who am I? What am I going to do? Nobody loves me anymore. Nobody cares for me anymore. And, challenges like that. And that is where your first set of challenge starts to come, that what do I do to define my own identity? And I know dozens and dozens of people who are struggling with this every single day because they keep going back to what they were. And that keeps coming back in conversation to say, oh, when I was so-and-so, this used to happen. When I was so-and-so, this used to happen. That does two things. Number one, it's making you live in the past. But more importantly, every time you say something like this, it irritates the individual who you say it to. Because the general reaction is, oh, there he or she goes again about the past.
Right.
So that's a very, very important factor for you to think about, which is your identity.
Right. So you must engage yourself in something new or something that you always wanted to do.
Correct.
To actually put you forward.
Correct.
Some of the other issues that I have often seen, and you have mentioned in the past as well in our interviews on retirement, that some people just forget about their clock, their calendar. So,
if you look at the normal life of an individual when they are working, it is, every minute of the day is planned, it's timed.
Right.
You will wake up at this time, you will get ready, you'll go to work, you'll be stuck in traffic jams, you'll be in meetings, most of the time you'll keep telling yourself, I must go home in time, because my family needs it, I need to have my work-life balance. But every single minute of your time is consumed. And so regularly I hear people say, I don't have a minute to spare, I am so tired, I'm so busy. And then suddenly, the day your superannuation happens and you haven't planned anything at all, you suddenly say, what do I do next? I have heard from so many friends who are not working now, where they turn around and say, hey, listen, what is the day today?
Right.
And that actually makes me feel sad, because if someone loses track of even the day of the week, then there are some very serious challenges that one has to start thinking about. And then also what happens is that, people don't get into a routine. They'll get up at any time, they'll eat breakfast at any time, they'll have a shower at any time. And I keep telling people, the discipline that you had in your working life must be taken through in your life post-retirement, because only then will you be able to have a full day.
Right.
Because otherwise, you will be just, rolling from one day to the other, 1 hour to the other, So it's important for you to make sure that even though you don't have a formal calendar, you don't have a formal schedule, you should build in an informal schedule, which includes something like an early morning walk, or a yoga, or if you play some music, or if you're watching television. It shouldn't be that I'm watching television 18 hours a day or whatever.
Even though you say you have retired, but I don't see it happening because your calendar is always full. And one of the most important things that I noticed today when you wished me birthday is those things on top where you have the birthday, the passing away of your father. So all those things mentioned, those things are there even in my calendar. But because my calendar is so full, I often neglect those top ones completely.
Correct.
But then you make it a point to look at that and take action. So I think what you are really trying to say is, okay, the ones at the bottom is something that you usually focus on during your work life, but post retirement you actually get the time to focus on the stuff that is on top of your calendar.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Very well said.
Thank you. So another thing that I have noticed in your writings is you often speak about upheaval in spouse relationships and other personal relationships after you retire. So what are some of the things that
So
you face?
this is again a very, very classical challenge everyone faces, and in a marriage where there is a male and a female, you people have lived together for 30, 35, 40 years, because you would have been married if you were married in your 20s,
Right.
but 40 years you would have been married by the time you decide to retire. If both of you are working, you're leading a very, very hectic life. You're running every day, you're seeing each other for breakfast, you've got children, they're growing up. As you come close to retirement, your children have gone, they've left home, started their own homes. And the first adjustment that starts to happen amongst the husband and wife is adjustment with one another. But even then, you're working.
Right.
The day one retires, and typically men are older than the women. So what you will find is that the male retires before the woman does.
Right.
Or in many cases, if the woman is not working, she has her own routine.
Right.
So suddenly there is this one individual who is now spending all time at home, interfering in what's going on at home, interfering in the way life is being conducted, and most importantly, intruding
Right.
in the space that has been created by the spouse in the absence of the husband.
Right.
So I have seen a lot of challenges start to emerge between the two, even after 40 years of marriage, because suddenly they are intruding into each other's space, which was something which was sacrosanct, and they had managed to create their own space.
Right.
And the only interaction they had with one another was the 2 hours in the evening or 1 hour in the morning.
Right.
So managing that is very, very critical. And it becomes a very serious issue once you start to retire. So that management is an important factor.
Right. I think that's bang on point. The other thing is when we are working, I mean, at least I can talk about myself.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are at work.
Yeah.
But then as soon as you retire, which I'm assuming not everybody is going to retire at the same time,
Correct.
you suddenly feel a loss of companionship. So you lose a lot of friends. You not necessarily losing, but then you certainly don't spend as much time as you used to. So is there a problem?
Absolutely. You said it absolutely rightly that, we all get our sustenance from the social support groups that we work and live in.
Right.
And for most people, the work-related social network is much, much stronger than anything else.
Right.
Now, as condominiums are getting formed and people are living in close proximity with one another, there are also informal social groups getting founded with friends. But when you leave and retire, the first thing that happens is that the only connection that I had with my peers was in the company.
Right.
Now I'm no longer a part of that company.
Right.
So therefore, I have virtually nothing in common
Right.
with the people who I thought were my greatest buddies, who I would go, eating with, drinking with, socializing with. Suddenly, I'm an outsider,
Right.
which once again says that I am now struggling with a lot of time. I am struggling to find something to do. I am trying to figure out how to handle my relationship at home only because of time. And on top of all that, I don't even have friends who were constantly available to me, because I would go to my office, I'd walk into someone's room, we'd go have a cup of coffee, we'd go for lunch together. Suddenly that has also disappeared.
Right.
So there are several factors that influence a person who's coming close to retirement. And that's why it is important for people to start to understand that as you're coming close to retirement, now is the time for me to start building different support groups.
Correct. Right.
And this could be in any kind.
So planning ahead of time is important.
Absolutely important.
Right. So you have also written about mixed emotions.
Correct.
I definitely don't understand that point.
Yeah.
But then what are the mixed emotions that you get post-retirement?
So, I have seen people, before you retire, you're always saying, oh, I'm looking forward to my retirement and I'm going to be able to, play my games and I'm going to play my golf or I'm going to play my bridge. I'm going to sleep in late. All the things that you used to aspire to when you were younger. And yet, I've seen people who used to say, I'm going to play golf every single day. Then I used to I tell them, I said, listen, you're getting older. Your body doesn't have the energy to be able to play games for such a long period of time.
Right.
You can't play the same thing over and over again. Coupled with more time that you have, coupled with all the other frustrations you're facing in your relationships, your own body is slowing down. Right. And that leads to frustrations. That, I used to be able to do all this, why can't I do it now? It leads to anger, within you. It leads to arguments. And these are the kind of challenges that we have to be able to cope with. Because, if you're having problem with managing your irritation, your anger, it's coming out at home, you need to start planning a lot of these things just as you're beginning to start planning your retirement. What will I do with my time? How will I handle my emotions? How will I handle my excess time at home? What will I do with my friends? Because none of these have anything to do with how much money you got.
Correct.
They have nothing to do with what a big house you live in or what a big car you are driving.
Right.
It is entirely dependent on you because it's affecting you personally, and along with you personally, whoever is your partner at home.
Wonderfully put. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You podcast. Be sure to visit tbcy.in to join the conversation, access show notes, and discover fantastic bonus content. You can follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Simply search for the Brand Called You. Thank you and see you next week.